Hello and welcome to this edition of the Go West Pole podcast. I'm your host, Sonny Allen, and today I am joined by our land and ranch specialist, Andrea Angel.
Hi there.
Our home and luxury specialist, Chloe Cinfio.
Hello.
And our incredible director of operations, Tonja Hancock. And today, we like to talk about all things real estate. And so today we're going to talk about representing buyers and how do we help people who want to buy real estate, whether it's a luxury home in Austin or a ranch out in the hill country. And it's a very complex issue. And we've talked before about how we represent sellers, and it really all ties together because the best way to learn how to be a good selling agent is to represent buyers. And buyers are dealing with a lot of complex issues. There are so many things when you're trying to buy property, particularly outside of an urban area where you may not have a single MLS. How do you find the right property? We like to ask questions of buyers up front. What are you looking for? What is it that's important to you? What is non-negotiable? What is whatever? And I call it a journey. And sometimes we have to show a lot of properties, and sometimes during that journey, the criteria changes. Buyers realize that, maybe I don't want that after all. Maybe I want this one. Or I saw something I like over here. But having a good listening ear and having the right resources, I think, are key to helping buyers. But we want to dive in today and talk about some of our personal experiences in helping people and some of the things that we see that buyers do that are mistakes, and how to avoid them, and to help you if you're looking to buy a property, whether it's a home or whether it's some land or whether you're just dreaming of someday being able to buy. We want to educate you, and we want to help you to get ready for that process. So I want to ask Andrea, because Andrea's got a unique background of being a real estate investor, and she's been a buyer, and that's ironically how we met as helping her buy some property. So I want to ask you kind of what some of your experiences are with helping buyers, and what do you think is important about working with buyers, and how do you're just such a phenomenal resource for buyers. How do you navigate that and make a difference for the people you help?
Well, thank you. It's, I think, number one, just being your buyer's biggest advocate in all ways, for themselves and, to the listing agents, to the seller, everyone,
Yes.
Just being that middleman, smoothing things over sometimes when
I
it gets
use
bumpy.
the term, we're not salespeople, we're servants. And I love that. We aren't trying to sell something.
Right.
When people
Trying
say
to make a good match
selling
and-
real estate,
Right.
well, I'm not selling anything. I'm just trying to be a resource to help you make an educated decision.
Right.
Because ultimately you're going to have to live with it. And my biggest fear is that I sell something to somebody that they later wish they hadn't have bought. So there's
so
no
true.
pressure. There's no, we're not trying to talk somebody into doing something ever,
Right.
So I appreciate you saying that. So.
Right. And then on top of that, just really trying to help people figure out what it is that they want and need, and lining that up with a property. So with ranch real estate, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
It could have a home or not have a home.
Yeah.
Water features or no water features. Distances. Sometimes you get really far out. How important it is for people to be close to a grocery store or their home. So there's just so many factors, and really diving in and trying to figure out that priority list, and maybe being flexible on it. So having that priority list move around a little bit depending on so many different factors. I have so many stories of people. I need it to be 45 minutes from here, and it needs to have this. A year later, looking at properties, and after they've seen that it's just truly not attainable. And those things change, and that's okay. I think sometimes people have to see for themselves what's available, and sometimes.
Well, and if they have somebody
adjust.
good guiding them,
Right.
then
Right.
they end up where they need to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they feel confident in their decision. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I mentioned, it changes.
Right. Oh, definitely.
And it's, I oftentimes have buyers that will apologize. Oh, I'm sorry,
Right.
And I'm like, no, I want you to make a good decision. So if you have to see 10 properties to realize that you don't want that and you want this, then let's go see 10 properties.
Right.
Because at the end, I want you to end up where you're supposed to be. Don't do anything out of obligation,
Right.
So, yeah.
And
And
some
then-
people don't know what they want.
Right.
I mean, they need you to help them and
They
figure
need
that
to
out.
see it, and especially in the land and ranch area, sometimes they have to go out and look at that thing, and when they go get on enough properties, they start seeing other things that they didn't even know about.
Right.
Right, and I think we've kind of touched on this with just the whole concept of West Pole. Land and ranch is more often than not a feeling more than anything else. Whereas a home, of course, you want to feel at home, but that's high functioning. You need a home that, has 4 bedrooms and 3 baths and
Yeah.
check, check, check. But land is really more of a feeling of
Yeah.
being out there, and that
Yeah.
can differ for different people, but just
Yeah.
a lot more fluidity with that.
Yeah, but also, Chloe, in the residential, you've got to feel good about what you're getting. It is your home.
Yes.
It can be highly emotional, and
Right.
it has to be a good fit. I mean, talk to us about how you have navigated that with some of your buyers.
Yeah, I think with every buyer, it's a lot different. I love working with buyers. I work with a lot of them. And with every one comes a different adventure. And sometimes it's because they do know what they want, and other times they don't. And
Yeah.
of course, you do have that checklist. Okay, we need this amount of bedrooms and bathrooms, but then it's, okay, where?
Yeah.
Austin is it's a bigger city. And
Location,
so do
yeah.
you, yeah, I mean, do you want to be tucked away in a community, or do you want to be near the water?
Yeah. Is there a school you've got to
Right.
be near? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have children that you want to be in a certain district, or is it just a couple who are empty nesters, so they want a getaway, near
And with
the
so
lake?
many people new to town, how important is that for you to understand the communities and the areas?
Oh,
because
yeah.
They may not have any idea.
Yes,
know.
the first part of my real estate career, I spent just researching schools and parks or local attractions, restaurants, shops, because people coming from different states, California, New York, Seattle, wherever you are, that's where a lot of people moved from, and
Right.
they don't know Austin as we do.
Yeah.
And they may think they want to move to East Austin because they hear it's, fun and
Right.
eclectic, but really they just want some good restaurants and near shops, so they'd be better off somewhere near downtown.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The thing that I think is really the most key in working with buyers is representation.
Right.
And most buyers don't even know what that term means. And in real estate, the way the listing agreements are written, if you don't have a specific agreement with a buyer in writing, you technically work for the seller. And that's why we like to work on committed relationships with our buyers.
Right.
And so often buyers are reluctant to commit to a real estate agent. They want to go out and look on their own. They, might have a friend that's got a license or some kind of stuff like that. But I see mistakes in that all the time where they're not really committing to work with someone, and it's hard for us to go out and dedicate our time. And there is that representation thing that could lead to legal issues even.
Right.
If you're not absolutely represented by a specific agent. Tonja, you're on the operations side and you handle a lot of that paperwork for us. How important do you feel that is, and how does that tie into everything else that we do?
I mean, it like you said, it's very important, especially from a legal standpoint.
Yeah.
It's also, I think that, I think buyers are reluctant to do that because the whole commission thing, or they might not understand, if I sign this, do I have to pay you, and that kind of thing.
Right.
I think it's really important to educate our buyers on, here's how this process generally works, and here's how we will represent you. I think that, like you said, and I think very few people understand that. If we do not have a buyer rep agreement, we technically are working for the seller.
Yep.
We technically are representing the seller. And so it's a pretty muddy water you're getting yourself into as an agent. And as a buyer, I don't want my agent that I haven't signed a contract with, representing, the seller. That's not my best interest. So
Yeah.
it's about educating our clients
The technical term for that is sub-agent. You become a sub-agent of the listing agent, and you're not technically representing that buyer. And I'm always perplexed at how many realtors don't even understand that concept. Somebody wants to go look at a property and they just throw them in the car and take off. And so having that formal representation is important, but at the same time, having that representation from the heart, that's where I think we really come through, because we care so much about our buyers and we want the best for them, and we're willing to go through great lengths to do that. And so it's also easier for us to be a good steward of our time if we are working with committed clients who are loyal to us and not going to go off and buy something from somebody else after we've shown them 20 properties.
That makes me think of Andrea's deal that she did, I don't know, has it been a year, 2 years ago now? Outside of Dallas, your Dallas clients.
Yes.
I was just amazed at how much time and dedication. I think, how long did you work with those?
I think we looked for that ranch for 2 years.
Yeah.
But
you found it.
We
and
found
it was an amazing property.
It was a tough find. I mean, there's a lot of criteria that had to be met, especially distance, from their home, and fought hard to find an off-market property. Lots of phone calls and lots of digging. And
you were pregnant.
I was pregnant.
You're about to give birth.
Sweet Cora.
Just makes for more of an adventure. But yeah, we did it. We just got those boots on the ground and worked hard for it, and they're so happy. So happy.
And then found more property.
And then found more property, yep.
For them?
For them, yep.
Yeah.
And for their horses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So they piggybacked off each other, and they could not be more happy.
But that's the dedication I'm talking about. That is important.
And in the land and ranch realm, we deal with such a large geographic area. We don't just get to go look up one MLS and see what's out there, and if there's anything that meets criteria, go look at it.
I feel lucky for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I pretty much do.
We have to hustle, and we have to look at every possible resource, and because we are members of every major MLS, we have that already in our fingertips, and we belong to all the major sites, all the land sites, ranch sites, and we have affiliations. I'm a director with the Texas Alliance of Land Brokers, and that's a network of brokers all over the state that I can reach out to and say, hey, I've got a client looking for this. Does anybody know of anything? Catch it pre-market or off-market, something that's not showing up on the internet, that kind of stuff. And then the other, I think just absolute difference maker is our affiliation with Keller Williams and our membership with the Keller Williams land community. It literally creates a global resource that we can tap into and reach out to a network of agents literally all over the world who can connect us with properties that we may not know about otherwise.
Well, and KW Land is coming out with a new website. They're redoing all of their marketing and website listings in one place. And some of those will be off-market properties.
Yeah.
And so those won't be in MLS, but they will be with KW Land.
Yep.
And so that's just an invaluable resource that we'll be able to tap into.
Yes, absolutely. And, just like Andrea did for that client, being able to hustle and work, and 2 years, but I've had clients take as long as 5 or 6 years to find the right property.
Right.
And it's that persistence and that dedication to getting the right deal no matter what it takes. If it takes longer, that's okay. I want the end result. I've got a client, it took 6 years to get him his ranch out in Willow City. And he talks about that every time I run into him. He's like, you're the most patient real estate broker I've ever worked with. And I'm like, I just want the right thing for you. I would have rather got it done in a year if the right thing came along.
Right.
But
And sometimes in those situations, it's like for me with that particular deal, it was a challenge that I just really wanted to fight for.
yeah.
You get invested yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was like,
and in
we can
them.
do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I remember Chloe did a luxury deal. I think it was the one out in Spanish Oak. She was looking for, like a year, this lady.
Yes.
She had to spend $4 million because it was, I think, a 1031 maybe or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the details, but I remember you working with that buyer for probably
that
a
one
year.
was specific just because, they had to spend a certain amount, but then just based on certain things. Like the house had to be so specific. They wanted a lake view, but when you walked in, you couldn't have windows. Right as you walked in, and the stairs had to be a certain footed, away from the door and other things. So it took us a long time, but
It was a spiritual thing, I think.
yes,
You know what I mean? It was
and they were working with a specialist, and so there was a lot of people involved. But I learned to love the whole family, and we did find the most beautiful and perfect property, and so it was probably one of my most favorite transactions, just because you get to know them and her family, and
Yeah, it's so meaningful when it happens
Yeah.
that way, and when you can literally make a difference in someone's life by helping them through that process, it's so rewarding.
Right.
It can be frustrating, and that's why a lot of people say, I don't work with buyers. Well, you're missing out, because to me it's like, just the relationships and the friendships that I've developed over the years from people that I've gone through that journey with, because ultimately you're going to spend a lot more time with a buyer than you are with a seller.
right.
And
Right.
so ironically, some of our greatest friends are people that, that I helped, through the real estate process. We even got a couple that my wife and I are very close to. I met them because they bought one of my listings, and I didn't even represent them. And after it was all over, they called up and said, "Hey, we like how you did that. Can we go have lunch?" And so
You have that effect on people.
And the greatest compliment.
Yes.
It is
absolutely.
the greatest compliment. Yeah, and they say the greatest compliment is to have you refer me to somebody that you care about, and so yeah, we strive for that. We strive to give that service so that when it's all said and done, people are ecstatic. The service aspect is there. Part of that process is getting through. Once you find that property, negotiating is something that I think we are outstanding at.
Yes.
And it comes from experience. You can't ever imagine how it can be to negotiate some of the deals we've done until you've done them, until you've been there multiple times, and you've seen how that process plays out. And getting, I've had so many deals blow up because somebody wanted a tractor they didn't get,
Right.
or a ATV they didn't get, and knowing how to navigate that, and knowing how to negotiate all the other things that might come into play, like if somebody's got to pay for a survey, or how to deal with minerals, and how to deal with, coming to an agreed price and all that, and having that expertise, to do that. But once you have that all on paper, there's so much that has to happen between that point and arriving at closing. And we like to talk about our process as being smooth, as being, I like to talk about it being like a swan going across the water, where you just see the top of it looking all pretty and elegant, but underneath there's a lot of things going on,
Exactly.
But we want to insulate our clients from any stress, any anxiety. I like to say we never close late, we never close ugly. We try to hold our lenders and our title companies accountable to make sure that we're not, letting anything slip through the cracks. And the key to that is Tonja.
Yes, thank you,
the
Tonja.
greatest
Yes,
ever
thank you.
organizer, motivator, coach. She keeps us in line. So talk to us about that process. Like, how do you get us from that point of having a written contract to closing?
Well, it actually starts a little bit before that. I review all contracts for our team. So I review, if they're going to write up an offer, I have to look at it, because you are dealing with land and ranch is a totally different animal than residential, and so they're just making sure all those T's are crossed, I's are dotted before. That helps the negotiations go smoothly as well. And so, and then once we have them under contract, it's just really important that our agents, I've talked about this before, but it's just important that our agents continue with that client-facing relationship. Mm-hmm. So, and then I take everything kind of behind the scenes and deal with title companies and things like that, so that the client feels, the client doesn't even know about that stuff, right? I mean, they're just, here's the title commitment, just showed up in my email.
And it's crazy because the timelines are so different between our deals.
Right.
Mine typically, if it's cash, is 2 weeks, and even if it's financing, it's 30. Whereas Yours is much longer.
Yeah,
We might need
sometimes, yeah.
90 days.
Exactly,
sometimes, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
So getting all of those things calendared and making sure that everything is, set up to where we're not surprised by anything.
Yep.
And no missed deadlines.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly, because you have survey deadlines that are different in farm and ranch than they are in residential. You might not even have a survey because you sell condos,
Right.
and so just things like that, making sure that we are proactive on all of the things that the client is going to need, is going to expect. And so we set their expectations and then we deliver. And so that way they get to closing and it was like, oh, you don't have any surprises. You don't have, and occasionally on a land and ranch deal, you might have a surprise, like somebody might pass away or you might have, or whatever.
Something shows up on title that nobody knew about. Yeah.
Exactly. Can we handle that as a team?
Yep.
Yes. And it has to do with the experience of everybody and all of us kind of working together to do that.
Yep.
And not being like, this isn't a lazy team. We're not a team who on both sides just do 1 to 2 transactions a year. We do a high amount of volume and at a high dollar amount, and I think that that's what sets us apart.
Yep.
Some luxury agents or land and ranch, they're just going to do 1 a year.
It's not a social club. No.
Yeah, and like some luxury agents, their numbers look good because they'll do 20 million a year, but it's like, is that 2 transactions or 10?
Yep.
And you get the experience and you know how to negotiate better because you're constantly going through different deals and you're constantly writing contracts and staying sharp with the
And I go
verbiage.
back to what I say probably every time, but that having somebody behind the scenes allows you guys to do your jobs,
Right.
Yeah.
and move on to the next contract, right? Because you might be negotiating, you might be working with 3 or 4 different buyers at one time.
Yep.
And so freeing you up to do those things, for me to be the Keller Williams facing person and the title company facing person, it just helps everybody move along and
And a
do
lot of
their
times we're
business.
needed as emotional support for our
Yeah.
clients.
Oh, yeah.
And it's talking through all these little things like
Yep.
the tractor
Right.
or anything.
Yep.
Can you make a lake on this site? Or, could you renovate this house? There's so many things that we're dealing with that take us away from the paperwork.
Yep.
So having you there is just a great resource that we're
and,
so appreciative of.
Yes.
part of the buyer representation is staying up with the market and having
Right.
time to go out and preview properties and explore what's out there. We're constantly on the grind trying to look at new stuff so we know what's
in the
out
know,
there.
right.
Yeah, and staying on top of it. And for one thing, I hate dealing with all those technical details, and I'm not good
Me
at
too.
it. And so having Tonja to do that is like, oh my gosh, it's just so awesome.
And also have someone to bounce, ideas off. Sometimes even in the
Yes.
negotiation process, it's, what do you think about this, Tonja? Is that too much to ask, or
Yeah.
not enough? And
Yeah.
you just
the
having
fact that I have it, I'm a licensed agent helps
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
and
you've been there,
so
you've done it,
yeah,
so you know.
it just
I love that you're so close to me. I pop over to her house once a week, not for anything
I know she told me
specific.
that, and I was a little jealous. I was like, oh, I don't get to have coffee meetups.
Yeah, it's not necessary, but always helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Well, look, and we've got a little time left, but not a whole lot. But in the time we have left, let's quickly talk maybe about some of the mistakes maybe that you've seen buyers make. Do y'all have any experiences where you'd go, man, I saw this guy do this and it was really not smart?
Well, it's just heartbreaking, I think, sometimes when, I've seen people have the one that got away.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they talk about it for years to come
Yep.
because they just were so dead set on a number or something
Yep.
that maybe they really were flexible on, but their ego got in the way or something like that. So I think that's the hardest for me is
Yeah.
when someone just is so rigid that they end up being disappointed in the long run.
Yeah, or indecisive, or
Yeah.
Yeah,
too
they didn't
busy,
pull the
you know.
trigger in time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's
They
the-
thought they had time.
Right.
And then
you can try to tell people that, hey, but then you feel salesy
you
when
don't-
you're telling
you don't
them,
wanna pressure.
there's other people
Yeah.
interested, or, they
Yeah.
told me there's another offer in.
Yeah.
And ultimately you have to let them make the call. And that's just, it's sad when you see someone lose
Yeah.
out on something that that they would have loved to have.
Yeah. If you had any experiences with buyers that they did, like,
Yes.
You were selling during the boom of downtown Austin, like
Yeah.
where you were putting offers and putting. I mean,
some people, it was like 10 offers, and it was hard because I wasn't going to ever be dishonest and I wasn't going to put in an offer for them that was so outrageous that
Right.
it wouldn't have been worth it in the long, run. But unfortunately, fortunately, there's so many options in Austin that sometimes I see people just there would have been a perfect match, but they just think like, oh, but there might be something else, and so then
Right.
they lose out on it, and
Yep.
sometimes it doesn't come back around.
Yeah.
So that's my job, is to kind of help them stay focused and let them know, no, I think
This is the
what
one.
you're looking
Yes.
for. Yes.
Yeah.
And it could be a long time until, it comes up again. So
Yeah.
Yep.
In the land and ranch arena, we deal with a lot of attorneys, and that is something we
Yes.
haven't really touched on in this
We sure
conversation.
do.
But I think one of the biggest mistakes that I have seen buyers make is because we're pushing it. I tell every one of my clients, hey, you need a really good real estate attorney to help you through this process and deal with the title work and file your title objections, review the deed. I'm not a lawyer, so I love it when people have a good attorney involved, and we work with some of the best attorneys around. But one of the biggest mistakes I see is they have a family attorney friend who is a jack of all legal trades and not a real estate attorney, and they go get that attorney to review their contract or their title work or their deed, and you end up getting some very bad advice, and it can actually blow a deal. And some of these lawyers, they want you to know that they're an attorney.
Right.
And so when we say get an attorney, we're talking about a specialized attorney that works in nothing but real estate, and we have some of the best that we are affiliated with, or not affiliated with, but we are connected with, that we can introduce you to. So get a lawyer that knows what they're doing, but get a lawyer.
it's worth it in the long run.
Yeah, it's just
100%.
like why you wouldn't want to have a residential agent
Exactly.
representing you on a land and ranch deal.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that.
So,
it's that.
I mean, it's kind of the same
competency. Yeah.
idea.
It's
I
that
think sometimes
competency.
people have to experience something bad to really
Yeah.
see the value in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just more
Unfortunately.
expensive than others.
Yeah.
Well, last year Tyler and I were working on a deal, and we had a client that had that situation, and he went to his family cousin, actually, who was a litigation attorney, and that guy got in, started messing with our agreement over minerals and wind rights and water rights, and rewrote the contract so incredibly horribly that
Scare people off.
It does, and it's just not a needed complication, when you do that. So get somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and on the flip side, I mean, for a personal investment, you remember our 3232
Yes.
purchase?
Yes.
I mean, we had to get through so
Yes.
much. It was just a mess.
Yes.
There were so many liens on the property, and honestly, we probably wouldn't have even found some of them if we
Yes.
didn't have such a good attorney.
Yes.
And that was
She
just
was like
invaluable.
so wonderful. I loved working with her.
Yeah, she said
So,
you
yeah.
same about you.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes it easier when you have somebody that knows what they're doing. Because I don't resist that. I want the problem resolved. I want the best outcome for my client. I don't want a problem that doesn't exist, though. And I don't want somebody trying to interject
Well, exactly.
changes to the contract that aren't needed or aren't relevant. But yeah. What about, is there any other mistakes, anything that y'all have seen buyers do other than go unrepresented? That's probably the biggest one. But
Right.
anything else that y'all have seen buyers do that, might be advice that we could give our listeners about, hey, don't do this?
Choose a good agent.
Yeah, don't, just because you've got a friend or a relative in the business,
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I think just so many people are like, well, my aunt or my cousin or my brother or my sister or whatever, and they live in Georgetown and they're trying to buy a property in Dripping Springs, or you really do need to think about somebody who knows the area that you're looking in. Because I think that's a huge mistake. I don't know if they think they're doing anyone a favor at that point, because they're really not. They could be shooting themselves in the foot.
Yep.
So I think that's probably a big one.
Well, we know some buyers right now, they're trying to buy a ranch out in the hill country, and the gentleman's wife is a licensed agent in Houston.
Oh, yes.
And not even a busy one, like just a few houses a year. And they're trying to go it alone, let her be, and I'm like, you're missing all the properties, and, you know, they feel like, oh, but we're saving, you know, well, no, the seller's gonna pay that commission anyway, so,
Right.
well, but we'll get a lower price if we're not charging for it, whatever, but like, you're going to end up paying more by not being represented properly. You know, you're going to end up losing that money regardless. So let somebody help you who knows the market, who knows the area, who can represent you properly on this type of a transaction, and you'll come out ahead every time. You know, it's you know, kind of like any other profession. You know, think about your doctor, or like we we're just talking about lawyers. You know, you want to be represented and represented well, and so you got to get the right person to do that. I think people discount what we do. They discount how much professionalism we bring to the table, and I think that's a huge mistake that buyers make. But anyhow, we could talk about this.
We could. We have a lot of
hours.
stories.
We can go on and on and on, but I think we're about out of time, so we'll wrap it up here. But you know, as we talk about the West Pole and the West Pole concept and what that means to us and our affection toward nature and outdoors and helping our clients to the best we can, we truly are a heartfelt team, and we have a lot of passion about representing our clients to the very highest level and making sure that everybody that we serve gets the best outcome, and an outcome that meets their goals but also is a pleasant process to get there. And I am very proud of these incredible people that I get to work with and how passionate they are about taking care of our customers. So if you're thinking about buying property, whether it's a land ranch, a ranchette, or a hunting ranch, or a luxury home, or a house in town, whatever it is, reach out to us and let us help you. We can make it a very pleasant process for you and get you the outcome that you deserve. And we'd love to do that. So thank you for your time today. We've certainly enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got value out of this. I hope this is going to help you achieve your goals, whether they're today or down the road, whatever. It's never too soon to start planning. If you want to buy something in a couple of years, come talk to us. We'll start planning. We'll start helping you. We'll get you connected with lenders and financial advisors and people that can start helping you get ready for that process, even if it's not immediate. So feel free to reach out to us. But that's all we got. So until the next time, remember, whatever it is in your heart that draws you toward the outdoors, get out and go do it. It's time to go West Pole. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.